Welcome once again to watching the Smithsonian Latino Virtual Museum. We are here with two talented artists in Santeros, Ronn and also Sean Trujillo. What we're going to be doing is talking a little bit about the tradition of making retablos in Santeros. So if you two gentlemen would like to reintroduce yourselves, and then we'll get started with our discussion.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. My name is Ronn Miera, and I'm a Santero. Been a Santero for about 22 years now. And over here to my side here is Sean Trujillo.
My, my name is Sean Trujillo. I'm Denver native. My roots hail from southern Colorado, northern New Mexico. I've been painting religious iconography since I was a child, and traditionally, traditional retablos for about a year and a half now. So, thanks to my maestro right here, Ronn Miera.
Great, thank you both very much for your time. I actually wanted to start asking Ron a little bit about the retablo that you have in your hand. If you could tell us a little bit of how the process of making it, and if there were any significance while making that.
Okay, this is an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and I did it in red monochromatic colors, something a little different. This was carved out of aspen. First I carved it, carved inward, and then I went ahead and carved the lunette on top. After I carved it and sanded it, and then I made a handmade gesso base that's made out of gypsum or marble dust mixed in with animal hide glue. And then I put it on there, let that dry. That's my gesso base. That's the white that you see here is the gesso. And then after that I started drawing and painting it. On this one, because I used monochromatic colors, I used different shades of red. All the colors that I use are handmade or either natural or traditional pigments. This darker red here, almost a purplish, that's cochineal. That's imported from Mexico, and it's a beetle that lives on the agave cactus. They take the little beetle off of there, they freeze dry it, and then when we get it, we grind it up, add a little alum to it. You add a binder like yucca syrup, or I think on this particular one I used gum arabic on it, and that allows the paint to adhere to the surface. That's why you have to add your binder to it. The pink on it that you see on the top here and on the bottom, that's done with roses. I take roses, I steep them in water, and it extracts the coloring from the roses. And then I add my binder to that, and then I'm able to use that. What's particular about these roses is that they came from Las Mañanitas at my church a couple years ago. I went and asked them for some of the roses, and they gave me the roses that were used while we honored Our Lady of Guadalupe. So I used that, and that's what this pink is. And I only use that pink on Guadalupes. I don't want to use it on anything else because it came from Las Mañanitas. That's great. Anyway, one second here. Emergency. Okay. The red on here is Brazil wood. That's the shavings from the Brazil tree. This little down here, this little angel guy here, the angelito, the red there is almagre. That's from near Taos. There's a little town over there, and there's a cave over there, and that's where that red came from. I had it on my palette. I'm like, what's this red? I thought it was cinnabar, but it's actually almagre. And then you just have different shades of the Brazil wood that I used in here. And then the final coat that I put on here is a very light coat so that it's a matte finish of piñon sap. I take the nodules from the piñon tree, the piñon sap, the hard ones. I put it in a container with Everclear alcohol that dissolves it. I strain it out, and I'm able to use that as a varnish. And that's what everything is varnished with, and I think even Sean uses that on his beautiful pieces. So that's a little bit about the tradition about it, or the process that we make it. I did follow traditional iconography with Guadalupe, and I did put a little smile with it because most of my retablos are smiley. It's a joyous thing to paint a saint, and the saints are joyous, in my opinion anyway.
And that's part of your signature, right?
Right, yeah.
You were telling me a little bit about learning of the retablo tradition, and that many of the Santeros have a family lineage, possibly, and if not family lineage, who they've learned from. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Personally myself, like I've said before, my seventh great grandfather was Captain Don Bernardo Miera. He was one of the first Santeros in New Mexico. Um, he was Spanish, and he had a lot of training in different art techniques from Spain, and he brought that up there to Santa Fe when he came up here. So a lot of his processes we still use. It is a tradition that's passed down from generation to generation in New Mexico and in southern Colorado. And a lot of artists, especially the Santero artists, can trace their lineage back to let's say, Antonio Fresquis or a Rafael Aragon or somebody like that, that they actually have lineage, so that it is passed down from generation to generation. And the techniques, although they've changed a few times over the years, the thing about the Santeros is that they used what they were able to get a hold of. If they couldn't get, because it was such a arduous journey to come up from Mexico over the Camino Real, they got, paints. Maybe once in a while they got some oil paints, but mostly they had to rely on their own ingenuity as to how to make the colors in that. A lot of people lately have came out and said, well, they learned from the Indians, because the Native Americans in New Mexico, they, with their arts and crafts. But that's not necessarily the case. Like the Imague, which is from a cave in Cuesta. This color, the Santeros will use it because they like this color. But the Indians, who also use that color, they look at it as as being sacred, that the color is sacred to them. Whereas we use the color to make something sacred, the Indians use the color because the color itself is sacred to them. So, and the Santeros do not look at it as something sacred, the color itself, but they look at the overall image as being sacred. So.
Thank you very much. And I was wondering then, I see we have two generations right here of Santeros. Could you tell me a little bit about your practice in teaching fellow younger generations of wanting to learn to make retablos?
Well, that's part of it, is that I feel that I'm honored to be able to do this art, that it's a blessing from God. And part of that is that I learn from other people, and I got to pass that on whenever I can. When anybody says, oh, I want to learn this, I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I have no problem teaching anybody if they want to learn how to make the paints, because that's how I learned. It's not like I just got a rose one day and said, well, I think I can use this. I had to learn how to do it. And I'm very honored and blessed to have somebody like Sean to learn these traditions and to learn the process. And it's not something that's written in a book. You find little hints in that here and there out there in literature, but it's actually something that, and it should be passed on from generation to generation, and it's a hands-on thing. So, and he's a wonderful learner too.
Sean, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to this interest of wanting to make retablos?
Oh, absolutely. Ever since I was a child, I've always been painting religious iconography. I mean, I remember even grade schools, people were painting the Ninja Turtles and the Power Rangers and the Supermans. I was always taking the holy cards and drawing the holy cards. And it was something that stuck with me for ever since I'm growing into, an adult now. And growing into, myself as a young Hispanic male, learning my genealogy and where my great-grandfathers came from, my great-great-great-grandfathers came from, and what their family, my whole entire family, what it's all about. It all starts to make sense. Like, I was blessed. God gave me this talent, to use it. And it's a very connecting way that I use that to connect my family and my art that I've been blessed with, and to show that within my retablos. And it makes it all that the more much special. It's a lot more deeper than just a canvas and paper. So.
Could you tell me a little bit about your retablos that you do in terms of the traditions that you've picked up from Ronn, and how do you employ those with your own retablos?
Absolutely. First of all, it all comes down to keeping the tradition alive and having respect for my senior Santeros such as Ron and Jose Esquivel, or the Lynn Fresques, Kathy Robleshaw, Carlos Santisteban, all the people who came before me who have practiced this, this traditional way. I like to, out of respect, and I like that. I like painting traditionally. And so to kind of maintain, or to maintain, the whole tradition behind the coloring making, the gesso, the hand carving, and most of all is the tradition behind who you're painting and why you're painting who you're painting. Because I like to think to myself, I'm a man of faith first, and I'm an artist second. And it's a blessing that I am, I'm able to put something like this on a piece of wood right now. So maintaining respect and also, recognizing that, even though we are here in Colorado, that our brothers and sisters to the south of us in New Mexico, they have a strong tradition down there themselves, and it's nothing I would ever want to take away from them, but it's very much part of our history here in Colorado as well. So it's taking pride in who our families are generationally here in Colorado, and then how they came up from New Mexico, and our family history in New Mexico, because we have a lot of deep roots in New Mexico. And we're proud of that, and I'm very proud of that. And so maintaining that level of respect, and most of all, respect for the church and for the saints, and for, the hundreds and hundreds of years who came prior to this. And I do not in any way want to distort or take away from that, or, I'm just, like I said, I can't say this enough, that, I really believe, Santeros, we have been chosen to do this, and we have to do it to the best of our abilities with the purest of heart, and maintaining that is very, very important to me. So I credit all this to, my maestros and, my previous Santeros. So
Like what Sean just mentioned about the Colorado Santeros, that there's about maybe 20 of us here in Colorado that do the Santeros, do the Santos. And we're a close-knit group, we're a family. Some of us do show in New Mexico, like at Spanish Market, but a lot of us don't. We keep it local. And because this art form, even though it originated in New Mexico, and we brought it up here, people see it and they see it as, oh, Southwestern art or something from New Mexico when they come up here, or when they see it in the galleries. So a lot of us up here, we look at it as a teaching tool and a way to evangelize also. Because up here, the Santos are, I wouldn't say that they're more religious or thought of a different way than they are in New Mexico, but the Santero artists up here are not under pressure to do these things that they do in New Mexico as far as the Santeros work down there, because they're going for the collectors, they're going for the tourist dollar. Up here, we're not going after the tourist dollar or the serious collectors. We're doing it for the people. And I think the Colorado Santeros are more genuine in their art because of that, because we're doing it for the people and not so much for the tourist dollar.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing this great history and acknowledgement of where your traditions come from. And I think what we see is a understanding of also how this tradition has started, be it a very old tradition and how it's moved from across the Americas and here with migration into Colorado. Mm-hmm. So I want to thank you both very much for sharing a quick moment with us to talk about this. So thank you very much. You've been watching the Smithsonian Latino Virtual Museum here with Ronn Miera and Sean Trujillo in Denver, Colorado. Thank you both.
Thank you.